Treaty 2, the year is 1871. Treaty 2's a meaty one, for some it's hard to swallow. A lot of land will see, a lot of promises will hollow. Find a dark and dirty, shameful history and all the dark and dirty, shameful words you're finally gonna follow. Yeah, at first the Anishinaabe weren't savage of the jargon that lawyers use. Lawyers drafted up a treaty with words which lawyers could peruse. It was said that they could make use of the land like they had in the past. It wasn't written up in the treaty, so that right's as good as lost. Yeah, they said if it wasn't written up in the treaty, that right's as good as lost. Yeah, and then they were requested to surrender the land, yet pretended that it was still available to them for hunting and for fishing until they found it unassailable. $15 per family a year is what Canada would pay. It was a pretty good deal for real, the Queen would later say. Pretty good deal, by gum. Was a proper deal. Yeah, proper for who? Because with just $15 a year, how's a guy to pay the rent? Now that these small reserves were the only place to hunt and pitch a tent. First Nations people of Treaty 2, they were accustomed to hunting in areas much, much bigger than what they were later confined to. 92,000 square kilometers is what was ceded to the Queen. And after it was all said and done, per person, that number dropped down to less than one. Less than what? How's a guy gonna hunt a moose on less than 1 square kilometer? Where's a guy gonna go to catch a buffalo? Matter of fact, where'd those big, beautiful, hairy creatures go? There were 30 million of them here on the Great Plains just a few years ago. Wow. Makes one think. What about a way of life? It's coming apart at the seams. What about that clothing that was promised? Queen Mother, it seems that the promises that you've abandoned have left the locals on their knees. Can somebody honor these treaties, please? First Nations local would be justified in asking, what about those breeding animals and farming implements? Man, you promised those things 4 years ago. They still haven't been sent. Why'd you keep them off their property on the west side of Clear Lake? Burnt their houses to the ground and left them to their fate. Whoa, talking about Reserve 61A, right here on the shores of Clear Lake. Yeah, for each reserve a free school, the great gift of education. Our forefathers said it would bring peace and righteous assimilation. Some called it genocide, some called it indoctrination. Today we look back in shame, it's called truth and reconciliation. Children were kidnapped and then crammed into these disease-infested accommodations. In some cases, 50% of them died from that forced incarceration. Yeah, Treaty 2's a meaty one, for some it's hard to swallow. A lot of land will see, a lot of promises will hollow. You find a dark and dirty, shameful history and all the dark and dirty, shameful words you're finally gonna follow. Can't help but wonder why more can't come to figure that it's Canada's blunders that make these tensions simmer. For so long they suffered, yet some have somehow forgiven some. It's Canada's blunders that make these tensions simmer. Well, can't help but wonder why one can't come to figure that it's Canada's blunders that make these tensions simmer. For so long they suffered, yet some have somehow forgiven some. Canada's blunders that make these tensions simmer. All right.